When you're working on a multi-song project like an EP, a full album, you want sonic consistency, right? You want each and every song to feel like it's part of the same record, part of the same season of creativity for that artist. Now, you could rebuild each and every project or mix from the ground up, but you're going to waste a lot of time and risk sonic inconsistencies because who knows if you're going to make the same choices on song 3 that you did for song 1. Now, I get it, every song has its own personality, but there's a way to work smarter, more efficient, more cohesive sound across the release while still respecting each song's individuality. And that's by using Logic Pro's import data function in the browser. Right now I'm mixing a 4-song EP. This is actually the last song of 4. I've mixed songs 1 through 3. And I want to show you how I've been using the import data function in the browser to stay efficient and make sure the entire record sounds cohesive. So I have not touched a single thing in this project yet. And everything you see on screen is just the way it arrived to me. It's a typical rock arrangement with drums, bass, rhythm guitars left and right, a third rhythm guitar apparently, a gong sample, piano, and vocals. Like I said, I've already mixed 3 songs of 4. Why rebuild the entire project from scratch? Even if I were starting from my mix template, I would be starting with, general settings, things that haven't been dialed in for this specific project. That's where import data comes in. I'm going to press F on my Mac's keyboard to open the browser, but of course you can use the button in the upper right-hand corner. And typically when you open the browser, you would see a long list of audio files and regions that are currently in use or not in use in your project. For example, if I open the drum track stack and select the overhead left here, the comp A, you can see right here in the browser, if I tab over, you can see that the overhead left region is selected under the audio file that this region is referencing. And if I select multiple regions, that's reflected in the browser. Okay, but I'm not interested in working with the files and regions of my current project. I want to get into the data, the nuts and bolts of the other projects that I've mixed. So I'm going to click on the All Files tab. And this provides a view, much like the Mac Finder, for navigating around your Mac. So I'm going to double click on the desktop, click on my Work in Progress folder on the month of February 2026, and then the album folder. Then I have a couple different folders for references, the original projects as I receive them, and then a folder with my initials, which are copies of the original projects, which are my dedicated mixed projects. And I'm going to click on song 3 here. Now, it doesn't matter if you organize your projects as folders or as packages, because either way, if you're trying to get at the processing and the routing and the automation and the stuff in that separate project, you'll double click on the Logic Pro project file. And now we're inside song 3's project. We see a list of the global tracks, of the audio tracks, the channel strips, the instruments, the I/O, the MIDI that is contained within that separate song. Right, so at the top, you can see the navigation that I took to get at this project. And then we have tabs to show or hide specific aspects of the project, like I just hid the global tracks, which would be markers and signature track and tempo track and the chord track. I can show or hide audio tracks, instruments, auxiliary channel strips, I/O, and MIDI. And beneath are columns for the names of the tracks, the numbers, the type of track, and then checkboxes for different types of things that you may want to import from one project to the next, like the content of the tracks. So the MIDI audio or pattern regions, cells from the live loops grid, if there were any, plugins, sends, inputs and outputs, automation, notes. This just makes life so much easier, and I highly recommend that you take this route when you want to import different facets of different projects into other projects. So again, my goal is not to reinvent the way that I mix the drums or the bass or the guitars or vocals, because I've already done that for 3 other songs. So let's start with the drums here. And I'm going to want to apply the same exact routing and processing for the overheads, the hi-hat, the kick in and out, the snare top and bottom, the rack, floor, and room. And if we take a look in the browser, we have drums, followed by some auxiliary channel strips for parallel effects. We have reverbs for the snare and toms. I have a couple track stacks nested within a track stack. So I have a track stack for the overheads left and right. I have a kick track stack for the kick in and out. I have a kick sample, snare track stack, snare top and bottom. right? So it's a pretty sophisticated situation going on here. So I could try selecting all my drum tracks and try selecting them in the browser. And I want to carry over the plugins and the sends and the I/O. I don't care about the content of those tracks because this is a different song with its own drums. If it were allowed, I would have two options. I could either replace the current processing on the current drums with all this processing and routing, or I can add a track stack and routing and plugins as a completely separate track stack. Replace is currently not available to me. If I select just the floor tom and then go back to the browser and turn all these options off for now, and just focused on just the floor tom, I could replace what's on the floor tom. Because of the routing of the floor tom, Logic Pro needs to ask, do you want me to add or create a new aux for any existing auxes from, the project you're trying to import from? I'll just click add. All right, so I have my floor tom with my processing chain, with my send routing to those other effects. I could work that way, that's totally fine, but this is a rather sophisticated situation, and I want to carry over all of these channels. And maybe I'll copy and paste the processing and the routing individually, just so I don't get too far ahead of myself. So let's close the drum track stack for now. And I'm going to select the drum track stack in the browser. Hold Shift, click on the last track that is contained within that track stack. So that's the room track. And I'm planning to add my plugin choices, my send choices, and my I/O choices. Okay, so let's click add. All right, so I'm just going to click add for all of these I/O assignments that Logic Pro is, double checking with me. I now have my drum track stack with the routing and plugins that I prefer to use. So we're going from here all the way down to here, right? So now I can take two different approaches. I could decide, for example, that I could just copy, if I felt like there was nothing left to do on the drums, I could just copy the overhead left to the overhead left track in that nested track stack. Right? So I'll copy overhead, left and right. Maybe I should be holding Option while clicking and dragging. So we have the kick, so on and so forth. But I want to do some due diligence in terms of double checking the comps and editing the drums in terms of timing. So I'll just copy the original take folders to this track stack that I've imported into this project. And now I can just collapse the old track stack folder and hide it. Now the original drum tracks are living in the track stack and mix that I mixed for 3 other songs. Just makes life so much better. Okay, so we can do the same for the bass. And just like that, I've loaded the individual tracks of song 4 into the processing chains, the mixing choices, the routing that I've done for songs 1 through 3, right? We have all these fader adjustments and sends and plugins. All of it is sorted out. So now if there's maybe a detail about song 4 related to the guitar or to the drums that I want to adapt or emphasize or de-emphasize, I can do that in this project, but I've just saved myself so much work. And also, let me just close down everything. Let's go to the stereo output here because I've applied processing in songs 1 through 3 on the stereo output. So I want to add these plugins to the stereo output. Let me show the output track, see if that allows me to replace. All right, let's replace the non-existent processing now on the stereo out with the processing from my other song. Booyah. I have a lot of meters, right? And I also have been playing with hardware and piping things in and out of preamps and outboard EQ and compression. Maybe I'll do a video about that in the future. Let me know in the comments below if that's something of interest. But the import data function, again, in Logic Pro, such a time saver. This isn't just about speed. It's also about cohesion Because when someone listens to this release, all 4 songs front to back, the drums, the bass, the guitars, the vocals will all sound like it's part of the same sonic world. It will sound consistent from song to song. So if you're working on a multi-song release, import project data, definitely worth exploring.